Hello and welcome to the Insights Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Parnett. Since 2006, I've been working in the realm of emotional fitness. Emotional fitness is about transforming our relationship with uncertainty so we're better prepared to handle the inevitable challenges and pressures and stresses that life brings. We get to explore in this podcast series what impacts our relationships, what inspires our actions, and what influences all of our decision making. We also gain clarity on what matters most, what matters least, and what brings us joy in this life. Join me on this journey from ambition to meaning as we explore deeply every nook and every cranny of emotional fitness. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to embarking on this adventure with you. Hello and welcome to episode 98 of Insights. Your host, Joe Parnett. I hope you're all doing well and thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. So today I thought we would focus on some practical tips on how it is that we can boost or improve our emotional fitness. Now, our emotional fitness, of course, is measured by the quality of our relationship with uncertainty. In other words, to me, emotional fitness is really about transforming our relationship with uncertainty. It's the single most important psychological relationship we could possibly have, is how we relate to uncertainty, given that uncertainty is the precursor to all growth. And everything in the universe, everything in our lives, from our relationships to economies, to markets, to opportunities, to trees, to nature, to everything is either growing or dying. Nothing ever stays still. Everything is either expanding or shrinking, breathing out or breathing in. As Ray Kroc said all those years ago, we are either green and growing or ripe and rotting. So emotional fitness is about maintaining the path to continued growth in who we are becoming as people, the expansion of our character, the depth of the way that we see the world, our awareness. All of these things matter immensely. Now, uncertainty, of course, is a fabric of life. It's part of how life is. I mean, everything. We are where we are today, like you and I personally, in our experiences of our relationships, our careers, our businesses, and all the different aspects of our lives are really an echo of how well or not so well we have embraced uncertainty in the past. Now, uncertainty comes in many flavors. There's challenge, there's adventures, there's pressures, there's crisis points, there's stresses, there's all kinds of different versions of it. And often to embrace the unknown, to embrace, as I forgot the name of the author, but the fellow who wrote the book, The Road Less Traveled. I'm sure someone will know to type this and give me feedback in the comments. But the road less traveled, I mean, it takes courage to go down a road you've never been down before. It takes courage to enter into something new, whether it's a new relationship or whether it's a new career path or a new business or a new opportunity or a new geography. All of this takes courage. And what I want to talk about today is some key elements I want to share with you, just a handful of ideas that I want to share with you that are designed to boost our emotional fitness or to improve the way that we navigate uncertainty. So just so I'm really clear in what I want to share with you today, becoming emotionally fit doesn't mean that uncertainty becomes easier. It doesn't mean that at all. Uncertainty will always be difficult. But what it does mean is that being emotionally fit, and some of these strategies I'm going to share with you today, provide us with the psychological resources so we can navigate with direction and clarity through anything that is difficult. And that is very different to trying to navigate something that is unknown or uncertain to us without knowing how to do it, where we're going, for what purpose, and all those wonderful things. So that's the difference. So these strategies I'm going to share with you now are designed for us to bring into our lives organically. Now, what I mean by that is I often share with my clients that the more consciously you invite uncertainty into your life, the less reason life has to invite it into our lives for us. In other words, one of my favorite sayings in life that I made up in a workshop once, it's this. It's that life is either going to squeeze us or we are squeezing life. Either way, something's squeezing something. In other words, if we don't embrace or consciously invite uncertainty into our lives in healthy ways, and I'm going to talk about the healthy ways of doing that in a moment, then life will find a way to bring it to us, whether it's in the form of a crisis, whether it's in the form of a shock, whether it's in the form of something ending that we never expected to end, or whatever it might be. So, and obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but I just said it obviously, so there you go. Is that human behavior, and what I'm talking about, what I'm sharing with you here, is so complex. There are so many layers. And the more complex something is, the more likely it is that it will be misunderstood. So lots of some of the comments I've already made here can easily be misunderstood. So please, if we could just embrace the journey where we're going in this conversation, hopefully this will add value to your life and to the lives of others. So the first thing that comes to mind in terms of becoming a conscious inviter of uncertainty, so we can boost our emotional fitness, so we can be better emotionally, spiritually, and energetically prepared for when things get hard, whatever that means, right, for you, in whatever circumstances of life. Here are some ideas around how we can boost that emotional fitness. The first idea that comes to mind is to consciously choose to do something that's really hard, something that's physically hard, ideally. Now, I'm going to talk about physically hard because often people misunderstand this. The moment I say, because when I've done live workshops and I've shared this with people, I mean, it's a wonderful conversation. I love it. But sometimes people's minds default to extreme things like, oh, so you want me to do something physically hard? What does that mean? Do I need to go and do a marathon? Do I have to go and do a multi-day, hike? Like they start thinking of these extremes. Here's something that's, I think, one of the most important things I can share in this particular podcast episode. And that is that the hardest thing you've ever done is the hardest thing that you have ever done. We can't compare our version of the most difficult, most challenging, most hard thing that we've ever done. We can't compare that to somebody else, because what somebody else has gone through in terms of hard, difficult, stressful, challenging, pressure, whatever their flavor of that is going to be completely different to us. Does that make sense? I'll give you an example. I was many, many years ago, I was coaching a client who suffered from agoraphobia. And agoraphobia, of course, is the fear of open spaces. It's the fear of leaving one's home and being out into the open, whether that's out in the street or in a shopping mall or whatever it might be. And this particular young lady had been frozen psychologically in the confines of her home for quite a while. By memory, I think it had been around a year or so. That's a long time to be afraid to leave your home. I mean, that is pretty scary stuff. For this person to leave home, to leave their house and go outside. And so we had a coaching conversation, a series of coaching conversations. And the conversations were about how we could get her to leave her house and feel reasonably safe whilst embracing the unknown. And so what we did was, in our conversation together, is we created some low bars that can be achieved. So with this particular young lady, what I shared with her, I said, well, do you have a pair of runners? She goes, yes, I've got a pair of runners. I haven't worn them for a long time, but yes, I've got a pair of runners. I said, well, why don't you put on those pair of runners tomorrow morning? Sit in your lounge room or sit in your most comfortable, favored, chair in your house, whether that's your couch or whatever it might be, and just put your runners on. And don't go anywhere. Don't walk around the house in them. Just see how that feels. And she did that. And it was a different feeling. It was kind of strange, a bit silly in a way, putting on your runners and not really getting off the couch. I'm sure many of us have done that in the past. And then I said to her, after a few minutes or however long it feels right to you, take those runners off and put them away. And that's it. That's the exercise for day one. The next day, do the same thing, except this time just walk around the lounge room or whatever room that you're in, and then take them off and put them back in the lounge and notice how you feel. Notice any form of progress, any form of energy shift. Anyway, we kept progressing with this, with the runners, building on this, walking from one room to the entire house. Then that progressed to walking out the front door to retrieve mail from the letterbox at the front of her house. Then that graduated to just walk into the neighbor's mailbox. That graduated to the neighbor after, following that one's mailbox. And then we graduated to walking around the block and so on until she was able to go out outside the way you and I would perhaps go outside without even thinking about it. And this was just through progressive actions, progressively growing actions. So the point I'm making here is that as far as this particular client of mine was concerned, one of the hardest things that she had ever done was to leave her house and go walking around the block. Now, that's hard to her. So this is an important point here, because when I say do something physically hard, please don't compare yourself to the most extreme things you've read on the internet or the most extreme things you've heard someone do. Do something that stretches your comfort zone, whatever hard is. If getting into a cold bath of water is the hardest thing that you've ever done, it remains the hardest thing you've ever done. And this is amazing, because when you do something that is genuinely hard, that stretches your comfort zone, most definitely. So the way that you know whether you're actually broaching something hard is when you're about to do that particular thing, you're not sure whether you're able to do it. So to give you an example, in my version of hard, because I've been running for a long time, I see a trainer once a week to do some strength work around my running stuff. And literally just yesterday, as of the time of this recording, we did a session. So it's a one-on-one PT session that goes for 45 minutes. And we spend the first 20 minutes doing a whole series of warm-up exercises, and then the actual hard part of the workout begins. Now, he said to me that what we're going to do is we're going to do lunges holding 24 kilos and of weight, and we're going to do a 20-meter lunge, as in so lunges are just sort of like stepping forward and getting really low. And the lunges, I don't know how else to explain it. I'm not a personal trainer, so I don't have all the language around it. But doing these walking lunges with weights, and one set or one repetition was a 20-meter walk. So it was lunging 10 times on each side for 20 all up, and then you get to the other end of the gym, and then you just have a rest for 60 seconds, and then you repeat that. And he said, we're going to do that 10 times, which is a total of 200 lunges carrying 24 kilos. Now, let me tell you that when I finished the first repetition, which was just the first 20 meters going into my first 1 minute break, my first 60-second break, I casted significant doubts within myself whether I'd be able to do 10 more or 9 more of these. This is like, it's 20 minutes of walking lunges with 24 kilos. Now, I thought, I don't think I can do this. And it's okay, we'll get to 5 or 6, and if I can't do any more, I'll just tell him and we'll stop. But no, I at the end of each one, I kept saying to myself, well, there's only another one, you're another one closer, and whatever else I was saying to myself. And I got through these 200 lunges. Now, I was completely buggered at the end. I was on my butt on the floor for a good 5 minutes before I could walk up and cool down and go back to my car and go home. So this is how you measure whether something's hard for you. Is it something that you're doubtful whether you can actually do it? Going back to my client who suffered from agoraphobia, she casted significant doubts as to whether she could ever leave the house. So that's how you can measure whether something's hard or not. And I believe that doing something physically hard, weekly, monthly, at least multiple times a month, ideally a couple of times a week, is so good for your soul. It's so good for your energy. It's so good for your emotions. It also conditions your mind to embrace something difficult. It becomes almost something that is, well, not almost, it becomes something that is very familiar. Embracing something difficult, embracing something where you have doubt as to whether you could do it or not, becomes something that is very familiar. It's like familiarizing yourself with the unfamiliar in a very safe, positive, resourceful, progressive environment. And so that means that when life does throw a spanner in the works, or when life does give us a bit of a touch up, or when something happens that we need to navigate, something that we enjoy or something that we love comes to an end, or whatever challenges we need to face, we are emotionally better prepared for it. Remember, it doesn't mean that uncertainty is going to be any easier. It just means that we're more emotionally adapted, more emotionally adaptable, we're more emotionally fit in order to navigate and direct ourselves through that difficulty. Now, compare that to somebody who never does anything hard. Because if we don't do anything that challenges us, whether it's intellectual challenge, physical challenge, philosophical challenge, spiritual challenge, whatever it might be, if we don't do these things, then our world of certainty continues to shrink, whilst the world of uncertainty in our perception becomes bigger and scarier and more difficult to embrace. When we're in that space, we're opening ourselves up to the vulnerability of more anxiety and potentially more depression because we have fear around doing things that we should not be afraid of. I hope this is making sense. So doing something physically hard, and I stress the word physically, I think is so good for us. And remember, don't compare what's hard for you with somebody else. It's like there was a client in one of my workshops just recently in the last few weeks, where when we had this conversation with the group, this particular fellow said, "What? So you expect me to go and run a marathon?" Because he knows I run marathons, right? And do half marathons and all this sort of stuff. What do I need to go and run a marathon in order to do something hard? And it was the same conversation. It was like, do you run? Have you ever run? Because no, I haven't. I might have run when I was back at school as a teenager, but no, this fellow was about 40 years old. And I said, well, no, it's not about going out and doing a marathon. But if you want to do something physically hard, and if you find running something physically hard, then do what I did when I started running myself, which was just literally running. I set myself a target of 2 kilometers. That was it. And I didn't even put the pressure on myself to run it continually. I thought, just get through 2 kilometers, as long as the bulk of it was that you were jogging and moving in that sort of way. Great achievement. Because if it's the hardest thing you've ever done, it's the hardest thing you've ever done. Does that make sense? So please only compare whatever's the hardest thing you've ever done with the hardest thing that you have ever done, not with somebody else. And that's an essential, crucial point in what I'm talking about, what I'm sharing with you here. So in the words of Molly Meldrum, for those of you who are old enough to remember Countdown and good old Molly, who used to promote albums on his Countdown music show, and he would always hold the album up and he would say to the audience, do yourself a favor and go out and get INXS's latest record. I'm showing my age here. I'll say the same. Do yourself a favor and go and do something hard, whatever it might be. If it's a walk around the block, so be it. If it's getting into a cold bath of water, so be it. If it's going for a 1 kilometer run, so be it. Whatever it is, do it. And you'll be amazed how that can add to your growth, how it can add to your esteem, how it can add to your confidence, and how it can transform your relationship with uncertainty, just doing these things. So that's one idea I wanted to share with you today. Another idea I want to share with you today is to practice, again, something else that's really, really important, and that's practicing the art of acceptance. Practicing the art of acceptance. One of the ways that people create unnecessary pain in their lives psychologically and emotionally is through lack of acceptance. When something has changed in your life, and change can happen, as we all know, literally in a microsecond. In a microsecond. Now, depending on the nature of what it is that we need to accept. So, for example, I mean, if I can give you an extreme example, and I'm not, if I am, I'm going to say this with the most profound respect and greatest of sensitivities to anyone listening to this episode. So, if practicing the art of acceptance is something that we can all think about in terms of everyday stuff, but also it depends on the nature of what it is that we need to accept that can sometimes take a bit of time. So, for example, if we have lost a loved one, if someone near us has passed away, well, clearly I'm not going to say to you here, you need to accept that straight away. Well, no, we need to go through the grieving period and the phases and stages of grieving, which are multiple stages before we get to acceptance. So these are more extreme situations that I'm talking about right now. But really what I want to, the art of acceptance, I want to share this art of acceptance idea with you more on everydayness kind of things. For example, you might, like this morning, I woke up to, I go and do my today, the day of the recording of this podcast. It's a Tuesday right now, as of the actual day of the week that I'm recording this. And on Tuesdays, there's a particular run that I do, and then I go into a cold bath straight after on a Tuesday. Every day of the week is different for me. And so I do it regardless, and I got up and it was raining pretty solidly. So now I could whinge and whine about the rain and start telling myself stories and reasons why I don't have to go out today, and that's easily done. Or I can just accept it for what it is. So now I've been doing this for a long time. So For me, it was raining. Was it annoying that it was raining? Well, personally, yes, it was. um, did I want to go out in the rain? Well, no, not really. But I knew that if I didn't go out, I'd miss out on this particular part of the week and my part of my physical regime and what I do and all that kind of stuff. So I accepted it. I just accepted it. I just kept doing what I was doing, preparing my bag and my towel and all the different bits and pieces, getting into the car and driving to my location where I go on a Tuesday, as if it wasn't raining. Funnily enough, when I started running, it stopped raining. So how's that for a wonderful gift from the universe? But the point I want to make is acceptance. A lot of people create unnecessary pain in their lives by denying, rejecting, minimizing, avoiding, trying to go around acceptance. And you're creating unnecessary pain because in that resistance to failing to accept what actually is, you're creating, so we are creating more drama. We're creating more pain in the sense of frustration or sabotaging issues get created. Procrastination issues get created. There's a whole extension to this that is unnecessary if we just practice the art of acceptance. The art of acceptance can be very, very powerful when it comes to any changes in our careers that we haven't seen happen. Or, like in other words, someone might lose their job this week, or there's a different level of responsibilities that need to be taken. I'll give you a classic example. Only 3 weeks ago, as of the time of this recording, I was embarking on a trip to Melbourne. I had back-to-back trainings, with. I hope my phone's going off in the background, so my apologies if you can hear that. I was flying to Melbourne for back-to-back trainings that I was delivering for two different companies, and I got a note about 3 or 4 days before I was leaving that one of those trainings, which was going to be 2 days, was cancelled, and it was cancelled in really sort of strange, mysterious circumstances, and I could go nuts with my imagination trying to make up a reason why it was cancelled. I don't know why it was cancelled. I'll find out later. Practicing the art of acceptance around that, it took me probably about 4 or 5 minutes after some whinging and whining and carrying on. And I accepted it because I knew that the sooner I came to accept that that's just how it is, the sooner I could get on with my day, the sooner I could embrace the adventure coming in the sense of, in this case, in the realm of going to Melbourne and doing my other training with the other group that I still had on to go and deliver my training for. The sooner I accepted the acceptance, there we go. That's a weird way of saying it. The sooner I could get on with it. The sooner my emotions, my frustrationally flavored emotions settled. And as soon as everything settled and I became more aligned with the training that I had to deliver and what was coming up and accepted everything, the sooner I could get on with it. The sooner I spiritually, energetically, and emotionally settled. So acceptance is such a powerful thing, guys, because all you have to do to test the power of an idea is to reverse engineer it. In other words, if we didn't practice the art of acceptance, how would our relationship with uncertainty go? How would it impact our levels of emotional fitness? Practicing the art of acceptance is huge. Carl Jung said, we can't change anything until we accept it. Whatever it is that we need to evolve, transform, change, shift, navigate through, we can't do any of those things until we accept it. So that's a really, really important thing. And the third and final idea I wanted to share with you here today is the art of creating meaningful rituals in your week. Meaningful rituals. So for me personally, my running does that for me. So every day of the week, I have a particular physical ritual. Every Tuesday, Wednesday, literally every day of the week. I don't know about you, but sometimes I forget what day of the week it is. And instead of trying to logically remember what day it is, I go to, so what am I doing today for exercise? Oh, that's right. I'm running with, this group, or I'm running with that group, or I'm doing this session with the personal trainer, or whatever it is I'm doing. And that particular running session tells me what day it is. Might sound a little bit weird and crazy, but that's kind of how I operate. So I love that every day of the week. So a Tuesday feels like a Tuesday to me because of the nature of my ritual that morning. A Friday feels like a Friday because of that ritual I have that morning. So a great idea, if you're willing to, consider this, is to set up your week where different parts of your week have a different flavor of ritual. Whether that ritual is a physical one, a spiritual one, a connection-based one, a relationship-based one, an activity-based one, whatever it might be for you. Because when we've got meaningful, and this is the key word, meaningful rituals, it gives us something to look forward to. And giving ourselves something to look forward to provides us with what I call hope. Now, by hope, I'm not talking about hoping, wishing, waiting. By hope, I'm not talking about, having hope around my life that I'm going to keep living. That's not the sort of flavor I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is having something to look forward to that brings you joy. So if you can create meaningful rituals or a meaningful ritual that happens multiple times a week that gives you something to look forward to with joy, it means that it helps you navigate any uncertainties or challenges to your day a lot more efficiently. So in other words, having something to look forward to that brings you meaningful joy boosts your emotional fitness because you're taking care of that other element which balances out the way that we embrace uncertainty, which ironically or paradoxically is our need for certainty. So having a ritual that we know that on Thursday mornings we do X, Y, and Z. We know that on Friday mornings we do A, B, and C. We know that on Mondays we do this. Whatever those rituals are, it brings a very wholesome, flavorsome, resourceful, functional version of certainty into our lives. And when you've got that need for certainty met, it's like a psychological, energetical, and emotional platform that you can sit on where you can handle more uncertainty because you've got that taken care of. But again, if we reverse engineer this and take all of that out of our lives and have nothing to look forward to and don't have any rituals and every day is a bit all over the place, we don't know what's happening next, and then suddenly there's another layer of uncertainty that's added to that because of some other challenge that we're facing that particular week, our ability to navigate that is significantly, the effectiveness of our ability to navigate that is significantly reduced because we haven't got a platform of certainty that we can depend upon. Do you get that? Love it. So they're my 3 ideas I wanted to share with you today. So the first one was do something physically hard. And remember, don't compare your version of hard with somebody else's version of hard or some other extreme versions of hard that you've heard out there on the internet or wherever you've heard or read stories about things that have challenged people. No, just remember that the hardest thing that you or I have ever done is the hardest thing that you or I have ever done. So remember that for always and only compare yourself to yourself when it comes to that. The second idea I wanted to share, I shared with you was about the art of practicing acceptance. It's such a simple thing. It's not necessarily easy to do, but if you can bring that into your awareness, so whenever something happens, something gets canceled or there's a shock or a surprise that's just happened around something, then the sooner you accept it, the sooner you can start embracing it and the sooner you can start progressing through that particular issue or challenge. But until we've accepted it, there's no progress. Remember, so progress is everything. So acceptance is like a prerequisite to progressing through a problem in a resourceful way. And the third idea I shared with you was practicing the art of, embracing or creating meaningful rituals in your life that bring you joy, that give you something to look forward to. So I hope you've enjoyed this session. I hope there's something from this episode today listen to me referring to it as a session. I hope that there's something from this episode that you are able to take on, share with others, and embrace in your own life. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to reconnecting with you in the next episode of Insights. And in the meantime, enjoy. All my best wishes, and I'll see you again very, very soon. Bye for now. The Emotional Fitness Experts Guide Masterclass is coming your way. It's free on November the 8th. From 11 a.m. to 12:30 Sydney time, we get to explore how we can transform our relationship with uncertainty, how it is that we can navigate the inevitable pressures and stresses and challenges of life, and also how to manage, navigate, and be successful at conflict resolution. So can't wait to share this with you. November the 8th, 11 a.m. to 12:30. The link is somewhere here. Otherwise, just hop over to joeparnair.com.au and you'll see the registration link there. Can't wait. See you then. I trust you enjoyed this latest episode of the Insights Podcast and received great value. Please remember to subscribe and share your reviews, and I'll see you again very soon.